Mansions. There's something that many people aspire to get for one reason or another, not the least of which is social status, proof of wealth, and so on and so forth. But while it's easy to think that every single mansion ever made is valuable, there's a difference between having value and being too much to afford, or being too costly to live in. Given that, allow me to show you 8 abandoned mansions that are worth millions. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 8. Pidhurtsey Castle.
At the time of building, many of these mansions will likely cost millions of dollars.
Let's start off with the castle, shall we? Though to be fair, Pidhurtsey Castle isn't just a castle. It was made over 400 years ago and still stands today in the Ukraine. It was built for a military man as both an outpost and a living space. It remained near flawless until new owners got it in the 1800s. They neglected the castle and thus it fell into despair. World War II only made matters worse, as fire and flooding and other damage made everything even worse. An art gallery owns the property now and is aiming to raise money to try and restore it to its natural glory. If that happens, it would be a big shot in the arm in terms of its value and significance. Number 7. Linwood Hall.
It has 110 rooms, 55 bedrooms, and 20 bathrooms.
If we're looking at Linwood Hall, both on outside and on the inside, you would no doubt see a massive estate that was built for the wealthy. This place was built in 1897 to 1900 by Peter Widener, who happened to be an industrialist who had a lot of money, as you can imagine. Within Linwood Hall are 110 rooms, 55 of which are bedrooms. There was also a collection of other rooms, including a space for an art gallery. So why is it abandoned? Size and upkeep. It's stated that if converted into today's money, it would have taken Widener $200 million to go and make this home, which says nothing for the upkeep of keeping it incredibly pristine. That price caused it to be abandoned and fall into despair. Eventually, it got so bad that it went up on the market and sold for $11 million back in 2019. But that doesn't mean that it's still not abandoned, because it very much is. You see, someone who has been inside the house noted that for it to go on and be quote-unquote perfect, again, it would likely take about $50 million to get done. And a few people would be willing to spend their money on something like this. Number 6. Swannanoa Mansion.
When you come up the drive and you turn and you see this massive marble villa.
The Swannanoa Mansion, as it is known, was made by James Dooley, a tycoon who decided that he loved his wife so much that he would make a home for her in her honor. By 1912, he was able to do just that, and by the terms of the period, it was a very advanced home built in ways that few had done before. For example, while the 50-plus rooms and the garden terrace were not exactly groundbreaking, the fact that the mansion had a private electricity system absolutely was. Not to mention, it had plumbing out of gold pipes. Eventually, though, Dooley and his wife died, and because of that, the mansion was put up for sale and taken by various people over the years, including one group who used it as a country club. Then came a living space, a museum, and so on. But eventually, in 1988, that ended, and the house has basically been abandoned ever since. It is currently owned by James Delaney and his sister Rita. They don't live in the mansion though, and thus it's abandoned and neglected and has been for many years. Number 5. Villa de Vecchi.
Go by hidden treasures. We're about to turn the corner. Shoo.
Not all mansions are abandoned because of simple things like price, too much space, or other basic things like this. Sometimes mansions are abandoned because there are those who feel that it's haunted, and the Villa de Vecchi is one such example of that kind of mansion. The Red House, as it is known, is a triple-decker mansion that was built in the 1850s, and it was built by a count of all things, Philippe de Vichy, hence the name of the house. But to be clear, it wasn't meant to be a simple living home. It was meant to be a modernized, at the time, summer home. The villa had plumbing, heat, a foundation on the grounds, and many more things that made it one of the most luxurious homes to live in at the time. One day, that count came home to find his daughter missing and his wife killed. He was never able to find his daughter, and thus a year later took his own life. After being taken over by his brother and other family, it was eventually abandoned after World War II, where the legend of the ghost house started to emerge. Just as creepily, in the 2000s, an avalanche in the area happened and wiped out just about every house that stood except for the ghost house. Number 4. The McNeil Mansion.
Oh, this place is huge.
This mansion was built by Andrew McNeil in 1894. McNeil was an industrialist and wanted a Victorian-style home that wasn't too far from the factory that he found and make his fortune from. Located in New Jersey, the home was the single largest private house in the country at the time, which in terms of numbers was 10,000 square feet. The place was so big that it actually had a second smaller house within it, so it could keep and maintain his carriages. A few years after making the mansion, a company called U.S. Pipes came and bought his company out. Then they got the mansion as well and added 14,000 square feet to it in order to go and make it a headquarters for their company. To their credit, they kept that mansion as a headquarters until 1974. And then after they left the area, they just straight up abandoned the mansion. Because of that, the mansion was left to rot and decay. Then, if that wasn't enough, in 2001, a fire broke out and scorched the inside. So while there are people interested in buying it, it would cost many millions to truly fix everything to a good degree. So thus, it remains abandoned. Number 3. Carlton Island Villa.
Directly across the water from our hotel room. I made a plan to see the Wyckoff Castle the first thing the next morning.
Located on an island in Cape Vincent, New York, the Carlton Island Villa stands as a luxurious castle home that now has a very haunted reputation that keeps it from being sold on the market for almost a century. Now, despite it actually being valued at $1 million because of its history, you could get it for about $500,000. But you'll be spending millions to go and repair it all. The mansion/villa itself was made in 1895 by William Wyckoff, who wanted a nice summer home for his family. If you think you recognize that name, you should. He's the man who made the typewriter. Here's the twist. On the very first night that he and his family were at the house, William suffered a massive heart attack and died. This started what many believe to be a curse, and by 1927, the house was completely abandoned. Estimates say it would take $10 million to fix it all. Number 2. Cambusnethan House. If you're looking for an old-school castle that harkens back to the days of earlier construction, then go back to Lanarkshire, Scotland, and see the Cambusnethan House. The original construction of the building was for it to be a tower house, but then it was made into a full castle in 1819. Originally, the castle was owned and lived in by a family known as the Lockharts. But as time went on, the idea of living in a castle like this was too much. The family left, and many castles like it were destroyed, which almost happened in 1967 when Scotland decided they wanted it gone. Only for a man named Ronald Wilson came and saved it. But it was somewhat short-lived as a fire eventually came around and wrecked the interior, and it can't be fully repaired because of the damage to the foundation. Number 1. Swingers Tiki Palace. It's not often you hear the words knockoff Playboy Mansion, but this is an accurate depiction of the Swingers Tiki Palace that resided in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was built by Billy Hull in 1972 and was over 5,000 square feet in size. Billy Hull was a strip club tycoon, and not unlike a former Playboy legend, he felt that this place could be the ultimate party central location. It had multiple bars, a sauna, and was viewed as the ultimate bachelor party place. Despite having a strong first year, he made a cardinal sin. He got arrested. Not just arrested, he was arrested for trying to kill his wife's lover. Because he was in jail, the place slowly fell into disarray, including the massive pool that was later home to more graffiti than water. Not wanting it stained and its tagging history to remain, they demolished the place in 2017. So what do you think? What do you think of these mansions that were all made to be famous and valuable, and eventually just faded away in one form or another? Which of these mansions surprised you the most in terms of their backstory, and what happened to them? Can you believe that there are so many mansions that are abandoned and yet worth millions? Do you know of another mansion that could easily go on this list? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.